we'll figure out the technology.
Sorry, I'll be ready.
No worries. I'm just going to say hi. Thanks for coming to the Infrastructure, Parks, and Public Spaces meeting. We've got Candace Winterbauer, myself, Emily Franzen, and Alexis Royce here. Sam Bowling has just landed from her flight, so for some reason she doesn't want to come straight to a council meeting after getting back from her vacation. Strange. So it'll be the three of us. Today we're going to just be talking a little bit about the plans that PLK has for the parcel that they purchased south of Robertson. A little bit about the stuff that's going on north of Robertson as well, and kind of do like a Q&A session. It'll be like more informal than a council meeting where, you know, you guys can talk, but we can't really answer. But we'll just let Mr. Lingenfelter talk about all the stuff that he has first, and then we can ask some questions and then open it up to you all, and you can ask questions and make comments or what have you. Sound good to everyone? My goal, because I know it is cold and gross and, you know, my house is nice and warm, is to try to wrap up here in about an hour or so. If there's still a ton of questions and such, obviously we can keep going, but I just want to set expectations as far as how long this should go. So if you're ready, Nick, you're welcome to just
I'm trying to get I've got my one slide up here that what I want to walk through, but I want to see how I got to flip the other. So give me 1 second there.
Yeah, that's the double screen thing. And I'm going to turn my back to you all just so I can.
So let me get that screen there because I apologize. I thought I don't want to lose the data we have on the one without the other. So Mick, I might use your computer if I need to. I don't know why it's why don't you pull that one up and that way I can keep it on here. That way we got that there. And again, apologies on this.
Oh, no worries. This is technology is the enemy at all times, honestly. I also want to note that no matter what, we talk about here, we're not making any decisions about what is actually going to happen. Anything that would happen would have to go before Planning Commission. So this is more just an informational session, Q&A, town hall, whatever you want to call it, to share some information and hopefully answer questions.
All right, let's flip it over and I'll just reopen that page when I need to. It'll take a second, but that way at least we can get it up there.
No, that's great.
What I wanted to do
sorry it had to be so complicated.
That's all
I wish
right.
we had better
and that's on me.
technology.
All right, cool. So this will go over here now. Awesome. Nuts. All right, so thank you again for the time. My name's Nick Lingenfelter with PLK Communities. I'm joined with Mick Oakes. He is my development associate and helps cover a lot of the project of what we are doing at the Factory 52 site. So in particular, we wanted to focus tonight on the parcel south of Robertson, make sure we're addressing some thoughts, concerns. After one of the other public meetings, somebody had brought some comments up as well, and just want to make sure I kind of walk through what we're doing. So stepping back, when we looked at this site, it is the whole area here, when the highway went through, was when Norwood, they must have done a larger rezoning around the 70s, was zoned GBD. Because I think the intention was at some point that this whole area would become a business district, which means that's the legacy zoning sitting on this and all the parcels. Under that zoning, I believe it's around 50 or 60 feet tall we could build. There's no density caps. There's a lot of things that could occur. And while we could maximize the land that way, we felt like to do something more in that residential context made no sense. There are 48 townhome units here. The parcel was part of the multicolor parcel as well as the state of Ohio. At some point, this site was meant to be an exit for the highway and did not occur. We also know that anywhere between 15 and 30 feet on the site has to basically be flipped because it was still dirt left over from the highway as well. They basically packed and filled this area in. The majority of this parcel, in particular, this area through the middle here, was actually to be the highway ramp, and then they filled in all the soil area. So the soil is not really stable. We'll have to do a lot of different remediation techniques, curing, things like that, in order to achieve a foundation that'll work. But I think that's kind of the high level. When we started designing the scene, what was the best way to approach the site from a development perspective, and also trying to, again, acknowledge that everything around us never became business and can stay in some type of residential context. So What we have designed are residential townhomes, kind of go through the rough design looks, the heights, things like that, and how that context, we did our best to try to make it work with the neighborhood. But, so you'll see anywhere between 3 families, I believe that's 11 units in the middle. But these are staggered townhomes, slightly different designs, roofs. It is meant to look more like a neighborhood type feel and less that high level of density that could be built on the site. Economically, with the dirt costs, it'd make way more sense for us to put a big building here, but we were trying to be conscious of all the houses. So right now, this is 48 townhomes. There's guest parking. You'll have detention to the north, some type of dog park. Since the last meeting, one of the things the fire department asked us to do was consider adding an additional access point somewhere on Robertson. We had a few different neighbors approach us about possibly acquiring their homes. We did not reach out to them. So we will show you an alternate plan where we could do an alternate exit there. The home is under contract. We have not purchased it, but if that's the desire of what we need to do an alternate exit, we can do that as well. So what would that look like? Roughly in this area here, we would alter where the detention is and come with some type of exit over to the Robertson side. That would allow traffic to disperse in 2 different directions if that's the desire of the city and community. What this would actually do is people exiting wouldn't go through the stop sign. So a lot of what we've tried to do is take that intersection of Beach and Robertson and try to pull as much traffic away from that as we can. Unfortunately, and I'll go over the traffic data in a bit, we look at what's called a warrant. So we have traffic engineers that come in, and they use what's called a traffic warrant, how many cars or vehicles go through an area in a day. That then dictates whether we put in a stoplight, stop sign, whatever we can do. Anything that doesn't meet what's an ODOT standard will not have the ability to be maintained by the city. So if somebody puts in a stoplight and you don't meet that standard, well, the city's on their own if there's issues. So, and that usually takes anywhere between 8,000 and 12,000 cars a minute to do that. Give you an idea, Montgomery Road is around 19. So right now the intersection sees 2. So from that standpoint,
I'm sorry, at the beach or at the
beach in Robertson, but I will actually pull it up and show you, like we can go we can follow cars routes. So we know that way we can say if this is where it feels like it's off, I've heard conversations well, if you block this section, what do you do? At least we can see real-time data of what people are doing to understand what that impact may or may not be.
Now, would that access road there match up to the proposed road that's coming out of Factory 52?
No, but intentionally not. So what our thought was there is that would be a right out only. So if people were exiting, we forced them to go right out.
But I thought the small house at the very end of Ida was for sale.
On Ida South?
Yes.
The Far Eastern House?
Yes.
As far as I'm aware, it's sold to an investment company. That
Yeah.
would be one of my questions. Did you?
We looked at it at one point, we passed on it a long time ago. They call us reporting the market. The one over here was, we had 2 different people call us after one of our public meetings and say, would you be interested in buying our home? So we looked at one and thought this made the most sense, the logistics place, if that makes sense. It is under contract, we're not required to buy it. We have 4 to 5 months to figure it out. But our thought is, at least at this point, we can go through the design and show everybody what it looks like. And if we want that alternate exit, we can pursue that route.
Okay, so your first slide though, that was all green space.
So that's what I'll pull up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so let me go back on that one. So what will happen when we do this, it'll still be the green space, but you'll be on both sides of the road. So you'll put detention on one side and dog park on the other.
I see.
We'll reroute how that goes.
I don't know if you're taking questions or you want to.
Well, I figure we can, you can go through everything and then we can.
Well, yeah,
questions
I can
and
help on
stuff.
those too. That way,
Yeah, because you may have some answers later on in the
Yeah.
presentation
That's-
to the
I
questions.
want just
Yes.
respect, however, whatever you're
Yeah,
having done presentations.
you're good. No, I think that's the thing is, I would prefer it to be a little more interactive because if I can answer it while we're there and we don't forget, at least that way it's we don't
Oh,
forget our
yeah,
question.
yeah, whatever makes sense to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to
My other
trip up
question
everything.
was just,
whatever.
is this gonna, are those egress and is that acting kind of like an alley? Like where are the garages on the townhomes?
So yes, they're on the back side. I'll go through that for you. So every one of these, effectively what we're doing, and the next slide I want to get through what the difference in height is. I think that's where people realize the scale is going to be very different. So the fronts of all your homes are here, kind of facing more that green space. If this means you want further the green space, and you'll do more of your traditional backlit garages where they share a driveway and we see an urban setting. We then do have a guest space as well. And what would happen is the trash is all the way down here away from everyone's homes. And we try to make sure we keep that, pet area, whatever that is as well, and the detention, that area. What I next one I can show you is about a 15 and 20 foot drop from this parcel to this parcel.
10
So
or 20?
10 to 15, anywhere between 10 and 15 foot, on average as high as 20 in some spots. So I'll go up to that here, which is where
Elevation drop.
elevation drop.
Kind of rooftop experiences on this?
No.
No?
It's really hard to make those work on a traditional for sale townhome. Very difficult on a rental where people have to actually maintain the rubber roofs. And we do our best to try to make something that it's not a maintenance issue or deteriorates quickly. So these will be speed. I'll walk through. We have some elevations of what those look like. Whoops, sorry.
Can
Okay.
you go back to the previous?
Yeah. Mhm.
That's good. No,
What's that?
no, that's what.
All right, yep.
So we had the water stand
Yep.
at the corner of Robinson and Beach.
Correct.
So what we worry about the most is basically, the access to our entrance there, and
Mhm.
also the safety, that would be fairly congested with the people coming in and out, and we come in and out sometimes. So, with just some proposal, if you look at the way, right, it look like you're gonna build some kind of landscaping
There's a landscape buffer, correct?
on this story, so it looked like that probably take about half of the width of the entrance to our temple.
Our entrance and exit is solely on our property.
I understand.
Yeah, so everything we design, we legally have to build within our property limits. So from that angle, everything here, we're creating a buffer between the edge of your property, roughly 3 to 5 feet of that green space, and then you enter and access our property. What we were trying to do with those initial kind of 3 to 4 spaces up there was make sure there are guest spaces closest to the front unit, so they're not parking on the streets as well, taking away from residents currently on the street. But no, all of our entrances and exits to our property are solely on our property, and we're legally required to design that our access only stays on the property, unless we're getting or acquiring access from somewhere else.
Would it be possible to, instead of the vegetation, create an entrance into his parking lot through the same driveway?
If they want to pay for it. I mean, because right now,
Yeah, I'm not-
there's no access easement, so if somebody's like asking me to give somebody land, I'm not gonna.
No, I'm not saying his land, I'm just saying instead of
Give
putting
him
a planter,
access.
Yeah.
just leave it open. You know,
We could talk about that.
Because I mean, it's like who's covering insurance, there's just like, we go through a lot of things there, but again,
Fair.
But
I think that's a
a,
net different issue. Yeah, I'm trying to go through like what we're doing on ours. I understand what they're requesting.
Okay.
There's been no request of us to try to give an easement or do anything there.
So what do you plan to do? You gonna build a wall up there?
We will have to build curb by code. So typically, we have to build a 6-inch curb of some sort because the city has minimum curb heights. Like, in order to put parking spaces there, you can't just leave a parking space next to a neighborhood. We'll likely then also have some type of fence or other buffer within all the buffer requirements that the city says.
So the way you show right there, you have 3 parking space.
Correct.
Between the-
Mhm.
So basically, with that designs, our temple will be basically boxed in. We can drive in there, so if we got maintenance service people come, they can get to it. If somebody got problem.
I think that there's
there, we
another,
can get ambulance to
Oh,
it.
that's it. Listen,
I
I think
think-
the safety thing, and from that angle, again, it's a different conversation. But if there's somebody that wants to approach us and get an access easement and talk about that legal side of it, we're glad to talk. We haven't had those conversations. But from right now, my insurance company, our company in general, is going to require that I design the property to be within all requirements and codes.
I think
So
that
that's
whenever,
a different
yeah.
conversation.
I think that whenever the city approves
Yeah.
this kind of stuff, then that sort of access for ambulance, for stuff for the temple is definitely something that we're going to make sure it stays intact as it is right now, as much as possible. I mean, there's another curb cut where the temple parking lot is,
Yeah, your
where there will
parking
be
lot
able
should
to
have
be
access
access.
from your property somehow. And if it
There-
doesn't, yeah, that's.
It'll still be
they
the
have to
same
get one
access
done.
that there is, basically.
Yeah,
And there would have to be another driver put it
Yeah, we would
On
need
the other
to,
side of the telephone pole.
oh, on the other side of the telephone pole. I'm trying to picture it. I looked at it, but with the snow, it was hard to tell where exactly all
As
the
of
curb
right
cuts
now,
is.
where the line is, half of the driveway is his.
Okay, well,
If you take where the property ends on Robertson, and draw a line all the way up to the beach, about half of that driveway is his.
I feel like that's something
But
we
it's
can,
not wide enough for a car to fit between his half and the telephone. pole.
Gotcha.
So unless they move the
Gotcha.
telephone pole, if they can use some of that access.
so that's something that we as a city would definitely want to make sure that we maintain that important public safety access and just access in general to the temple such that maintenance, anything that needs to go in there would not be affected. So for me, as a, resident and a person that loves that we have a Buddhist temple, I want to make sure that no matter what happens, that his property and the property of the temple remains accessible. So if that means moving the telephone pole, if that means adding another curb cut, widening that driveway, I'm sure that's something that, at least for me as a city official, in my capacity, that's what I would want to see.
And I'm sure as you start building, some of those telephone poles will be taken out or made larger.
If Duke will let us.
The one on the corner is bending.
Yeah, Duke, I know has been doing obviously a lot of telephone pole replacements in the area. I'd have to check with them and see kind of what their plan was for that area, and maybe that they're already looking to,
And if that
Decrease the number of poles.
It could be moved to their advantage.
that would be great.
One up.
Yeah, I think,
Are they, on any of our sites, technically, we're required to bury the power now on most new facilities.
that would be even
I
better.
can't be required to bury the street, it's just at my entrance, but I don't, again, does that mean they move poles, what do they do? I can't answer how that would work, that'd be a conversation that we would have to.
Yeah.
encounter.
As a city person, I can at least email Duke and see like what their plan is for that area. If it turns out that they're going to be doing some stuff there, it may be kind of a fortuitous thing that while this construction or what have you is going on,
They can-
figure out the poles, bury them, at least move them, and then help make sure this access is good for everyone on that corner.
So to be proactive, would they want to talk to the building department to voice their, concerns?
Potentially.
That they would want to have some kind of input as to where, if they are going to move a telephone pole.
I think that would be
include it in.
a part of the new development would be talking to Duke about that with the city. And
Basically do.
yeah, it's really Duke's thing.
We have a dedicated Duke track that works. The facility, the property's big enough to get a dedicated Duke track. So like when they move the poles across the street, it helps coordinate those things. So as the reps are meeting, we can have something that we're able to share on how that would work. What Duke does is Duke, but we at least are able to voice our concern.
Yeah, cool.
And you would be open if you were to approach PLK and request some kind of easement access, it would be.
We just have to determine our.
It could be discussed.
Yeah.
Yes.
It may not hurt.
Yeah, and like I said,
PLK say, hey, can we work out a way to get an entrance?
all plans are never final until they're actually
Right.
final. I'm sorry.
But yeah, from a zoning and approval, I have to show my
I'm
property.
trying
and
to
my
get to you.
property.
I'm sure, understand.
The gentleman in the yellow had a question, who had raised his hand, in the yellow jacket, sorry, you, sir.
What is the, I'm a little bit confused on what the elevation is, so it's set down.
That's actually what I want to get into next. So, so the next I want to kind of show everybody,
And the other question I have is, Peter ever thought of making this a green space?
is who?
Peter ever thought of making this a green space? I mean, you're building, you have all that building going over on one side, I mean,
We can't afford to write it off. The clinic's too expensive, yeah, so it's not going to sit as a green space.
Okay.
I mean, but it's,
I just wonder, because I mean, you brought such an influx of people in there, and you have, an amphitheater, but I mean, that's outside center, but there's still no real green space, with grass and everything else. So I thought it might be nice for the people that you already there, to migrate on over there.
So we've been corporately helping the city apply for the grants like you saw for Dole Field. We've been paying for the lobbyists to help get that money that was allocated last year. We understand the importance of green space. And actually, it's really cool to come see the site now, like just even the change in multicolor, how much it opens the world to like everything in general. No, so our goal is to focus efforts and help the city try to get more and more federal money, things like that, to put money in the Dole Field. Because we feel like that is a better use of community assets and money and time. And even our corporate time, like we've paid for all the design work for free, $25,000. So our thought is though, Like, let's try to help the community, you know, improve the sidewalks, take out the dead trees, make the youth fields better. Like, let's spend the money there because it feels like a better use of our resources than taking them that we
Yeah.
have on major things. So.
The other issue with new green space, whether it's PLK supported or city supported, that adds more maintenance
The
costs
city would have to pay for it.
to us. And as I'm on the Parks Committee, which is this committee, which is also the Infrastructure Committee, I know that we are already way behind on maintenance on all of our parks and green spaces. It is a struggle to even get money to pave the parking lot at Millcrest, which is horrific. If you've ever been down to there near the soccer field, it is bad. However,
Mostly a puddle.
yeah, mostly a puddle. It's great.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, I would love to have more green space, but I appreciate that PLK, not unfortunately, this is money that they want to make. Yeah.
Well, and again, I think though, too, like, it is important, green space is important, the bike plans are important, like, we helped sit on that committee. We want to keep putting resources towards obtaining money to make that bike trail and connectivity happen. Like, we really want to take the city's work that they've done and continue to help kind of fuel that as much as we can versus create another thing that just becomes a burden to the city. Like, let's be smart about where we're spending it, but we do understand that that is important, and our residents want it too.
Yeah.
So let me finish this. What is my best way to follow up with that entrance access to the?
You got your card? We talked to Nick. Yeah, he's here every day.
That's why I just want to be proactive.
Yeah.
Point out.
And I think it's good to talk about it now when things are not set in stone or even in mud, really. It's just, I mean, that's kind of why I wanted to make sure people were here to talk about this and not have worries that could easily be allayed. Anyway, elevation of the townhomes.
How many units are, once you're finished across the street on, on Robinson, this next phase?
So I can go through the
How many
different,
are there now and how many you're building?
it's, I want to say it's 448 that'll be there once the current building's finished in total. And then the goal was to kind of go to that lower density townhome and bring it down to that residential scale on the south side. And then it basically leaves room towards the highway for that mixed use building of some sort, the 125 to 175 units. We were not through the design yet.
So additional to the, what's there now?
Correct. So in total, when we're done, you're around, I think it's always been around 800. I think we're getting around 850 with a kind of modified plan, because before it was to be denser, this allowed us to kind of spread out the density for what we were building.
So the mixed-use building you were talking about, you're gonna make into town.
So, let me make sure I got into it. So the townhomes here, so if you look at the multicolored, yeah. So multicolored, let me go through the,
Mixed-use building on the backside of that, right?
correct, and that's all townhomes behind multicolored right now. So I'll walk through what those are. So there's a couple, let me go to this design and pull that up for you. From this angle, but I want to make sure you just cover elevations, because I think this is a big one. And I know you and I haven't been able to connect on just because we called, I missed you, and then I was out of work for a little bit. So if you look at these, the upper floors here are on the 821 feet range. Just to kind of give everybody like a scale of where it is. The upper neighborhoods actually sit significantly higher than the back part of the site. So as we actually get down to the foundations, you have most of these around the 612. So we're talking about 9 feet of just change between the edge of the property and where we actually start to look at the units. So when we're talking about the height of the buildings and scale, we're actually looking to take about 9 feet off and show like what the height variances are, what we're building. So
You're taking 9 feet of the grade out.
correct. So if you live in a house in this area right here, you say, well, that needs to be taller than my home. Well, you're 30 feet and it's 30 feet. It's actually sitting at 21 on your house. So it actually sits lower than your home.
Okay.
There's 9 foot below.
Yeah, so it's not like these are going to be townhomes that are towering over our existing houses because the grade is going down.
Elevate
To
to
the street.
Yeah.
the rock. Okay.
And that's the thing. So at that side street of Robertson, but yeah, again, I want to make sure we get the elevations here, it starts to drop off even more. If you look down to the edge here, it's at 610. And as we continue to go to the backside, it gets even lower. So the buildings themselves keep stepping down. I'm sorry?
Those are the fronts of the house.
The front is, these are in reverse when I'm looking at here. The fronts are right here. You can see the front doors
So
here.
there will be trees in front.
There'll be trees in front of it, like a walk landscape.
Well, kinda.
Okay, so you don't drive up,
As you go down to the far side, you
Mhm.
you don't.
They're all rear
know,
end.
Bob's garage.
You can see the front
Right.
still.
So, you know,
We don't want garage in the front.
lines are all, you know, elevation
Okay, you put
lines.
the garage back, I get it.
So if you look at Bob's garage, where their retaining wall is marked now, I'm guessing that thick line is a retaining.
That's the
wall.
retaining wall we're coming in,
So,
yeah.
yeah, the main oaks that I'm concerned about are all basically where the gradient of the hill is currently. So they will have to take those trees down.
So if they're on the hill and they can be saved, they will be saved. If it becomes something that's a fall risk, they'll tell us what we have to do. But we'll have to rip out any vegetation.
I'm gonna get, you know, knowing what I know about trees, and landscape building.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way we're, you know, if they're putting the buildings right there, I know exactly where all of those trees are, they would be on that gradient hill. You can't leave a tree that's on a gradient hill, the tree will fall over.
Yep.
So that means you're taking all the large oaks.
And we're working with, there is
There
a,
may be a couple
Yeah.
over to the right side, you know, say the middle of the townhomes, but everything on the left, there's no way to grade that and underneath the trees.
yeah, and some of this is, there is a big natural drop off here. So this actually is almost more like a ravine that kind of, going backwards because I'm looking at my screen. There's more of a ravine in this area. So we're scraping it out at the bottom. Now, we do have to put the retaining wall in again to support everything and make sure it holds. But the idea was to keep buffer there. You notice the garage was built over the property line. We're not worried about that. We're not touching it. We're just, I'm making sure, because that was one question I got. We're not asking anybody to change those things. So,
Now, since we're on this corner of the
Yeah.
property, there's currently a city storm drain right about here. Right at the far corner. Are you guys going to be doing any, you know, is there anything being done with that? Is it going to be replaced, filled?
I can't answer for that exact pipe, but there is a rule that says if we can access an MSD line, we have to, which is what our entire property does. And it's a very significant cost, but we are required, because there's a combined system here, to go to a split system anywhere we can. So there is a very significant cost. And that's actually one of the reasons we looked at kind of lower side, how do we make sure like we're tying in the right sewers and not causing any additional infrastructure concerns. We're also having that large retention pond as well, to be able to kind of collect additional water.
Yeah.
So that arises.
I was just looking at, you know, okay, if we shut it down.
Yeah, I can't answer for the exact pipe there, or I'll have it on me, but I can make sure it's. Sorry, man.
Okay, so, if we look at the larger view.
Mhm.
I have, everybody knows I'm gonna go here. I got two things. So the Duck Creek, you know, basically followed 71. And it used to be in Berwood. And if we try to plant trees in Berwood, and yes, it's just nothing but construction, it's a landfill.
Yep.
And, so it just seemed logical to me that, I mean, that would be a concern because, you know, they just thought, oh, they can just bury this creek and out of sight, out of mind. But why couldn't we, I mean, have you sort of done the soil testing to see if there's a lot of moisture or broken pipe or things like that? And also, it just seems like this is a really great opportunity to put a bike and walking trail through to like Ida with to get a easement from the city the way they did with Sherman. You don't want that?
No, don't
I
do
mean,
anything to the
I
dead
like to
end, right?
walk over because I know, I want to be able to have one beer in the second beer if I want.
Well, I think that I mean, the dead end of Ida, it's such a short distance that having to cut through there close to I-71, I mean, it's like 30 seconds that you would save maybe. And if you want to, there's people at the dead end of Ida that would probably not be super happy with more access if I can,
That's what I'm saying.
if I could interpret your,
On the dead end
Yeah.
years.
20 years.
Yeah, none of us want that.
We
I'm
got
not even on that dead end, but I'll go with
I'm
what
sorry,
you
it's part of that
Yeah.
thing.
We don't need any
So-
more access on the island.
I know
So
that
what
that
I'm
route was
thinking is
discussed
if
at one
people-
point, with the pedestrian plan last summer.
Mhm.
I don't know why it didn't proceed. But I know that was when they were going over like where could a bike trail go through the city. That was definitely something that was discussed. But again, I can't speak for why it wasn't there. Because we said, hey, that's your greenest route to get something if you want it. And it didn't, so like it was definitely in that plan somewhere. And I don't know why it didn't pursue it. But I understand where you're coming from.
I just feel like if the development, if this whole area is gonna be successful, we should be able to easily get from Oakley and back and forth. You know, it's gonna be more customers for you, and, you know, there's just stuff over there we don't have here. So, I think it's fair to say that most of us avoid the Smith Edwards mess. And, I mean, I was using Robertson, now it's gotten to be where I don't as much. So, I don't know, I mean, it just seems like if you're gonna have this great green space and it's a dog park and you have a water feature, that's a destination, that's a
Yeah.
focal point for
There will be a
people who
sidewalk
like to
in terms of
exercise.
business. Like, there will be a sidewalk that allows you to connect through our property. It won't just be a road. Right now, this is schematic put together by the week.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, if we went this route, what it look like, but there will be a sidewalk.
Emily's not liking this, so.
No, I just want to make sure that we get through everything
You're good.
before the clock strikes 7. Not, again, that's more just like,
Yeah.
I know after an hour or so, people's,
So, want to
Tim
kind of
wanted-
walk through like what the heights are, what they look like. So this is a combination of how the various different units could look. They're interspersed a little differently. So these are primarily 2 bedrooms in the den or 3 bedrooms in the den, 2-car garages. What you see, and I'll get to the height in a second, is we really wanted to give it some variation and not just this straight row of all of the same look. There are definitely sections that will have that, depending on like we need to put this as a row of 2s or we need to do certain way, but we will change the materials and really make it look specific to that design. We're currently showing that the balconies are in the front and the back. We're debating if customers will want both, but you would see that type of balcony on the front and back. There are no roof balconies. It is truly just that lower level just above the entrance or in the back of the garage. The corner units are actually 3-bedroom units as well, so that 2s are in the corner. What we really tried to bring together is like the old idea of like your corner store and figure out a better way to do corners on townhomes. I've built townhomes for years, most of the time they don't look good. So what we've done there is actually a split garage in the back, and it allows it to kind of tie in the neighborhood and actually bring the scale down to 2 stories as we get to the corner. So again, it's how do we scale these things and make it kind of tie together from residential to commercial and not just have what we had at multicolor, which is 5 stories of booming rates.
Well, one thing I was afraid of seeing on these were a lot of very small windows, which it bugs me anytime I come home, so,
These are larger lot by code. There's large, you can pretty much go.
okay, so I
These are big.
like that, yeah.
I think what, 60 inches minimum?
People won't want to just move or sell. It's a place where when you go home, you want to be there.
that's one.
More work than number 2. Costs us a lot of money, turning a unit, when you have to turn a house, it's even more. So it's just double the triple. So yeah, when we look at our square footage, being significantly larger. But I would say our windows, we always build to a maximum, and you can put transoms above to make them feel even larger for what's there. So one thing that we kind of done the design, kind of show you all, and this, I'm sorry, the numbers are hard to read, but we did have some measurements of the typical home on the street. So the top of the typical home in the area, is between 28 and 33 feet, kind of like a scale. And, you know, there's definitely some there where, but if you look at the top of the home, so each one of these represents that 9 foot 10, 10 foot, and I'm sorry, 10, 20, 31. So at the highest point, we're sitting at 34 feet from. So if the average home on the street is anywhere between 28 and 33, we're right at 34 feet. Now again, as this scales back in the back, take that 9 foot off, that's even lower than a home sitting that are average in the area. Will we have taller than some? Yes, even on the street, they vary. But what we looked at was what is the top roof line, so we make sure that we understood roughly where our heights were at and how to stay within 10% of all that.
Did somebody park a truck in one of those garages, or?
So it depends on which ones, but we typically spec them to mid-size. Most of our renters have commercial construction trucks. So a unit can be anywhere between 18 to 22 to 24 foot wide, depending on what your unit height is. Our lease is specified that they're small and mid-size cars. And that's, we spec, and your depths are typically 18 to 20 feet, so it's a little garage now. They are no smaller than any urban town in Buxton area except for Underground. They're the same size, so.
So I went to a really interesting design lecture once where the planner was saying that that alleys, he was advocating for alleys and why they need to be brought back, and that they had built some new things out in, I think, Arizona, out west, and said that the alleys with the garages became like a third place where men worked on their cars and had their beer and chit-chatted, and everything didn't have to be just so for the HOA. So that was kind of like a value add, having the alley, because those are much more informal spaces.
But to your point, we see this a lot of condos we sell, it becomes a gathering space. Even when they're condos, we don't allow grills on your decks. So you see people that want to grill out, they're going on the ground floor, they definitely interact more with their neighbors because their garage is private to each other. That's what it is.
As far as the elevation is concerned on the other side, the Robertson side, how is that, is that going up towards Robertson, or is it for the people who live on Robertson?
I live on Robertson, and Danny resident, he lives right behind me. I have like a view right now on 36 feet. It's gonna be our 30 feet or whatever.
34, so, yeah.
Yeah, I had a nice deck, and now I'm gonna be looking at some nice window. Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, like the typical residential street, that's, you're right, you'll look at a window that's directly across. From our neighbor's standpoint, I think the one next to us was 31 or 32.
There'll be a window there, but like I said, I'll be looking, yeah, they'll be actually, I'll be looking at the window here, and then I'll like, it'll be the next one. Because I think my deck might be, it's on second, fourth story, like a 16 feet high.
Okay.
And that.
So, yeah, I mean, you'd be sitting between floors 2 and 3.
So you will be going down, you'll be going down, lowering the grade.
It follows the
Compared to
property
Robertson.
down. So Robertson is a grade, and everything drops down from there.
Okay.
So now it will be the, like, we've seen the back side.
You'll be seeing the front side, see the front of houses, correct. I believe there's 3 on that street. Let me double
Yeah, because I
check.
believe all the,
Yeah, there's 3 front doors.
Like right where your dot is, I have the garage back over that, so.
That would be lowered on that side of the property as well.
So, make sure I'm good on this one. These are builder grade.
Yes.
So, yeah, the first floor foundation, they grade, and we'll start to street to the back of the property.
Throughout.
Correct, yeah, the whole site falls off.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's 20 feet roughly from front to back, depending on where they're at on the site. Yes, there will be 3 townhomes there, like an urban 3-family, in height.
That northernmost road there, I think he said he's on Robertson. He'd be facing in front of those homes, but it looks like that's actually the back, right?
Those are front doors there. So there's a couple different things. This is an alley, so this is the garage, they would butt up each other, so this is an alley.
So.
Talking about the northernmost road there.
On the top,
Like the access
That's horizontal.
Townhomes? I think he's speaking about this road here.
Yeah.
Going here, so this.
That would be the back of those homes because we actually have a front yard, like courtyard, we could all of that.
So that's gonna be the back, that's not gonna be the.
Those would be the backs of those, it's the front because that middle area is a courtyard, we can all put it all.
So
Okay,
the
so I'll be
front
looking-
doors that face each other,
So I thought you were across the street on that.
No, I told you exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I probably missed that part.
all good to
front
know.
doors that face each other, is there like room to have a couple chairs or?
Yeah, there's a small front yard in front of them. Like, so you look at like the front, you come out your front door, that's your sidewalk coming out, there'll be a small fenced in area. And each one has a small space for their own.
Oh, okay, so a little bit like.
Like a little courtyard area,
It's a courtyard.
Yeah.
Or something, or-
like a nice little courtyard where you can come out and sit and kind of be insulated.
Yeah, maybe a patch of grass.
There's a lot of people, there's a patch of grass that probably turf, and honestly, we'll do turf because most of the people will have pets. And you'll want to make sure that it doesn't die, because unfortunately in smaller townhome units, the first thing you see is flies. So it is much better to do that, so it does not die all the time, we just have no vegetation at all.
but there won't be any trees in that space, like for.
We will have to landscape through there, I don't know what they are, but there'll be trees.
Not big.
Will not be big.
Yeah, landscaping.
Yeah. Bushes, trees, and again, we'll stagger them on the side, we'll have a full landscaping plan, because the tree has a minimum tree standard we have to meet.
So these are all gonna be rental, they're not for purchase,
Right.
kind of a bummer.
Our agreement with the EPA says we'll never sell municipal property, that's everything we don't.
Is there a reason?
So they dumped some stuff here at one point,
Uh,
so it's contaminated, and it's part of the same agreement,
so there's a lot of lines, right?
yes. Yeah, so roughly where the townhome that was, and I misunderstood before, we've definitely had impacts like 8 to 10 feet. Don't know what gums they store, don't know what they dump. We'll have to take all that out as part of our site.
Fun.
I know what they do.
Love
I mean,
that.
this thing, like, we can't, it happens, but like in the 70s and 80s, like, it wasn't regulated like it is today. So people would just dump it outside, which
Yeah.
is why all the dry cleaner and the mess of it.
And there's the foundations of houses out in that area too from
Yeah,
before.
we have, all of our foundations are actually required to have a vapor system, which basically is, like a passive radon system, things like that. So, rather than anything there, we have a lot of rules that we have under our agreements with the EPA. One other small thing, just kind of touch on, because I know we've talked about where this does line up. So if you have this line up here, you can cover the right corner. It says, our primary access point is where the blue is. I know we talked about the site line before. And then that's roughly where we'll kick out. It's staggered a little, and it would be right out only if we put an access point there.
I also wanted to note, just really briefly, the city has contacted the city of Cincinnati to see if they could lower the speed limit on Robertson on their side from 35 to 25. I think it's a good idea. They seem receptive to it. That would be a them and ODOT thing. Obviously, that won't prevent people from speeding, but they're also doing some right sizing of the road over there in conjunction with the Three Oaks development. So there will be some decrease, hopefully some decrease in speed, as right now it goes from 35 to 25 over the bridge. And with more traffic and more people walking, I want it to not be a speedway. I want it to be a
That's great.
slower.
Yeah.
I don't know when that would happen, but we talked about it just after the winter break.
Give me 1 second while I pull this other thing up and switch over to it, because I think this will be the next. See that there. All right. Because I want to actually go in actual traffic, because I know that was definitely a question we had.
Yeah, I know that's something that is on a lot of people's minds, for good reason. There's more people, even though there was a factory there, it's different traffic.
Yep.
It's good to know kind of what's going on and what is currently happening now. I know there are concerns with the traffic study done during COVID times, and now we have more recent traffic data that I think better reflects what is actually happening there.
So one of the tools we have now, which allows us to track things, it's usually a quarter to 6 months behind, is software data that uses GPS in cars, cell phones, and things like that. We've talked about in the past. What's really nice about it, though, is it really helps us figure out where is traffic actually moving, and we can go street by street, block by block, and tell where it starts to disperse, and we can even tell by hours of the day. So one of the things we look at, we'll say, okay, for instance, let's go down here to Robertson. I'll zoom in here real quick. You can see this. So it says this section does about 2,400 cars a day. But then we can even hone in on how many cars are we getting per hour through the intersection. We can really start getting how many cars per hour we can see. That's 2,400 cars a day.
2,400.
2,400. But what's interesting, so then you say, okay, well, like we want to know, okay, well, how many are going through, so I can zoom in, I'm sorry. Come on here. How many go to factory 52 or whatever? So right here, you go from 2,400 here to 1,600 there. So you can only assume that it's starting, like, are they going straight, where else are they going? This really allows us to say, are they coming to our property? Are they cutting through to somewhere else? What are we doing to really kind of help figure out how to alleviate that traffic concern, or if there's something there? So when we started looking at that, we do believe, if you're saying 1,600 here, and they're likely either coming to our property or going to the neighborhood streets, that's 1,200 there. There's 1,300 there. So all of a sudden start cutting in half again. So what we're trying to do is say, if we want to alleviate the traffic, when we figure out where these entrances go, we can really start saying, okay, if we can start getting this traffic to pull off of here, all of a sudden, what is that relief or pressure on the side streets? So that's what we're trying to figure out, where the entrances go. How do we reduce the speeds? Can't fix everything, can't fix this a cut through, but there's other options to it.
Yeah, and another note with traffic, and sorry, I see you have a problem too. So we had talked at another meeting, myself, Mr. Gerton, and the other folks, just about the issues with people using, you can see on here, Melrose is definitely being used for quite a bit as a cut through. One thing that you can do, which
So
Seems silly.
that's interesting, actually. So
Yeah.
we looked at that to give you that idea. So
Not 13.
everybody said Melrose is the cut through, so it's interesting. So right here, you get 1,100 here.
Yeah,
But check this out. 289 of those are actually neighbors cutting through on the side.
yeah.
It's
So,
actually not going to the property. So we start looking at those going, okay, yes, there are more people using it, but are they using it because of construction, potholes on another street? What else are they doing? And how do we get there?
Yep.
And to that point, like if we can help, somebody said, okay, well, if you put signage here, what does that do? I mean, you're 243 here. There really isn't a lot. So yes, there's a limited number of cars that are coming here, but you drop to 900 already by this section, and you go here, you're at 827.
but of course, when you're used to 200, sometimes going up to 800 can feel like a lot. But one thing I thought would be good, and this is like just something we're trying to do, is what Google and all the map apps do is they do use that AI stuff to read signs. If you put a sign that says no through traffic on a road like that, it doesn't happen instantly, but they will catch on and stop routing people through that.
That would be great.
So that's something that Mr. Gerton and I think we had talked about with the city. And that would, I mean, it's not going to stop people,
No.
but it can help people that
Sure.
aren't from around here.
Get some
And,
noodles.
yeah, and then having like a wayfinding thing, like having a sign saying, factor 52, arrow pointing this way, continuing down Smith, if we're going from 71, that can also help reduce people cutting through. And that's all we can, that's my hope, is obviously we can't 100% keep everyone off,
that would be a
but
great
keeping it reduced and keeping it a nice, relatively quiet area. I know for me, I'm on Forest, so I'm kind of used to more traffic, but I would hate to be on a smaller side street and all of a sudden have 2-3 times the traffic that I'm used to. So that's what we can, as the city, can do to try to alleviate that. And it won't be instant, but it is something that I am frustrated by because I can't get Google, well, I know, Jeff, I think you tried to contact Google or something and they would not take
That
your
would be a great
calls.
idea.
But yeah, so that's kind of our plan going forward, to try to address that.
And something I think is good, to kind of like two things to point out, like just this little stretch of houses is up for 95 below, which is kind of fascinating about since right now, like how many are actually dispersing as we go further on.
Yeah.
Just that little half block, there are 90 cars of those a day. Right. So that's
They
sorry,
go to
that's
work and they
yeah.
come back, or they.
correct. That's 45 cars.
Amazon deliveries, et cetera.
That's what, so what we're saying, like when we try to figure out like how much we actually feeding, we definitely want the signs there, but I want to make sure we understand. I don't know how great the impact will be because there's still traffic. But yes, we will do whatever we can if there's signs we can put in. Because one of the big things we've actually pushed, and the city's been working with us, which is part of the other grant funds we applied for, was trying to figure out if there's a way to dead end the street here and try to force traffic out in this direction. This is the edge of Floral. So if we dead end Floral or look at Floral here, whoops,
The 5 point?
correct, and try to figure out how you can allow people to exit and keep them off the neighborhood streets. So in theory, what you could do, if the concern is that they're exiting our property and keep off the other streets, you put it right out here in a commercial area.
Yeah, so right now, that's right by the Salvation Army, if you can picture that. And the city has talked to them and they're fine with that. They don't use that area. There's just a dumpster there right now, so that can be moved. Yeah, sorry, you had a question and then I kept talking and never went back to you.
Has there been or is there going to be a proper TIS?
Yeah, yes.
Done for this development? Is there a certain number of, 850 is a substantial amount of units going in. I would assume a traffic impact study would be, I understand the GIA or GPS tracking.
This is how I'm going to explain it. There has been a full traffic study done, there's been updates, and there's been 4 or 5 rounds in the city since August.
Yes.
So they actually hone in on this is what you need to, basically what can we help alleviate is where they're at right now. Because I believe the original one accounted for 750 units. So when we look at that, it's about 100 units difference.
And that's definitely
It is a
something
lot, but
that,
it's not enough to like impact the areas. So then it's like, what areas can we affect and impact? And this at least helps me explain in real numbers, like what's going on.
and that's something that Mr. Skelly, I think, would probably be a part of too. So you could ask me or him about that.
My understanding was the problem with using Floral was the new data center that they want like intense amounts of security and they don't want any kind of cutting through it.
So, and I don't want, I can't answer for that because I don't know. I can answer for like what we
That
had
came
last
up
year.
when they came in.
Yeah, so,
And because it used to be people would cut through to forest.
they they blocked it as a metal pipe there as you indicated. And, for some reason, the city asked when it was done there, I want to say in the 90s, to block it off. But I don't know if that was the cause of it or what it was, but it literally, right now you go through, there's not even parking spaces there.
Because people further down on Coral didn't want that to become more of a thoroughfare.
Yeah.
Because we used to have a lot of race there.
Yeah.
Is there any way that,
So I would like to
that this
go
can
back
be
to this
available?
one point.
Yes, so this is on YouTube. Streaming live. So if you go to Norwood,
You know, it seems
Norwood
like,
Community Television,
maybe
all of our meetings
like a
are
big
all on there.
change, but
If you can't find
I
it,
can
if
think
this
of
presentation
numerous,
isn't there, let me know. I can have them
streets
make email
in
it
the
to
city of
me.
Cincinnati and Dayton,
Appreciate it.
places,
Have a great one.
where they just block off like on Douglas Terrace, on Montgomery and Pleasant Ridge, and Atlantic and Edwards, and then they did another one off Edwards where they blocked them off because they were having so many troubles that the neighbors were basically begging for the street to be
Blocked off, yeah. I think that's why if they would connect Wesley and Floral, that they would dead end Forest, or Floral, sorry, at Park. So that little block, half block would not have access there, but they could just go around to Forest, and it would prevent people from coming down Floral, making that area more busy. And there's the Catholic school there, so that's kind of a concern too, of trying to not have a bunch of cars cutting through from Wesley down Floral all the way to Smith. They would have to take Park. I don't know about access for Davis or
You
anything.
wouldn't be able to get to Park anymore?
The people on Floral would, that would be a dead end. And then, now I'm saying this is based on talking to the safety service director like 6 months, a year ago. I don't know what the plan is right now, but that's something I can get an update on if that is still something they're looking at or if they decided to go a different route. But that was the idea, and that's what I think you
One thing I
would.
mentioned, so we talked about the traffic study, one of the things
Yeah.
they actually asked us to put in there was, can you guys calculate what the difference would be if this gets opened or closed? So that way they didn't have to incur the costs. So one of the things we did in our updated study was actually explore what that would do, and which is why I mentioned it. That's up to the city if they want to open it. I know the Salvation Army has talked, I've met with them in depth that they would do it if we needed them to, things like that. But ultimately, that's up to the city to figure out if they want to do it. So, but our traffic study, we were asked to study that intersection, say, could that help alleviate some pressure on the side streets? What else can we do?
Yeah, so I don't want to say for sure what is happening. That's just what that had been talked about as an option in the future.
But kind of like, to what I was, like, my overarching point is more, we were saying, okay, if we can get, that's why we have the access point down here as soon as you enter. And we're looking at, okay, if you open this up here, does that then kind of alleviate any pressure, as much pressure as we can off the neighborhood that we may be causing in that area? And I can't stop the rest of it, but we can do what we can to alleviate the pressure at this point. So, sorry.
What is the count on Beach right by where the access would be to your to phase 3? Like by the temple, like right there.
1,400 cars a day.
Those are the cars coming from.
Actually, so I think they're coming from somewhere else. Because if you look at,
Oh, yeah.
Melrose is 827. Like, that's something, I think it's the neighborhoods are actually kicking in and traveling through there. So if you look at really what Melrose is pushing off to ours, you could say if all of that's ours, that's 827. So 600 cars alone are just the people here driving that way to exit.
And I think some of that's probably people using Ida and Marsh to cut through as well. But yeah, it's mostly people, seems like coming from Melrose, just based on this data. But that's something, again, we're having signage and having better things. And even, now I don't want to even talk about possibilities that aren't even in the scope, but there are things we can do to prevent people or reduce the number of people cutting through and keep them on these more main routes to make it so it's less hazardous for people trying to walk their dogs.
You can do a comparison as to what that time is now, the time of its dead end, when we're having one lane.
Right.
When you're doing the construction. You had that down to one lane on Robertson. Because at that time, Google was not telling you to go down Melrose.
Oh.
They were not, and what I can't tell is like, is my data, do they have it finite enough to do that?
Right, I don't know if you
Yeah.
can
That would be
load
interesting.
the parameters, adjust that
It was
to the
definitely a
states.
lot quieter.
Oh, yeah, it was nice.
So we need to no, I'm kidding. I can't even joke about that as a city official,
A
sorry.
lot of people talk about it. Then beach at Angeles, or up to Leslie, so people can get in there.
Oh, yes,
Where,
sir.
that's where it was stopped, that's where the,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have a question. I'm not sure who can answer the question. It could be you, it could be you. Right now at the corner of the Penville, around the area, heavy time because of heavy rain. Everybody got flood from down the basement. Okay?
Okay.
Because now we have an empty parking lot that one is going to build empty parking lot. Hey, what that all the rainwater run all the way down to the.
Yeah, so all the impervious surfaces, just keeping all the water coming through.
So now we have a lot of mile of building, you could build it up.
Mhm.
You could have a lot of residents moving in.
Mhm.
So you guys are improving on the sewer system or not?
I would love to tell you for sure. Mr. Skelly, do you know what the parameters are for that?
System. Oh,
The sewer.
it will be, so I'll say this, we have active detention on the site. We have grates that are collecting everything we have, and currently the site has nothing. So we have to do greater than what we are doing, and that's not to cause a negative impact. And we'll also be taking all the water on there and pumping that to MSC. So anything that would have collected there today either sits there or goes to Norwood, we'll be taking that off and putting it somewhere else. What is the true impact? I can't answer that, but I can tell you that we are not allowed to be negative on the situation.
Yeah, so any changes would hypothetically be for the better, especially having active detention, rather than nothing will be good. Yes.
How big is the hotel gonna be going in?
112 keys? 112 keys.
So from 850 to 952?
So you can't look at a hotel that way. I understand the thought process, yeah. So when you look at a hotel, they figure that, and this is still true, on average, they see about 60% parked. You still have a significant number of people that still, in today's markets with all the data, even in the immediate area, that aren't parked at the same ratio. Even if you're 70% occupied at 60% parked, we are required to provide enough places for everyone. But you won't actually see that many true car impacts from the hotel. It'll be way more for, if you look at food hall traffic. They're just, they look at it. And most of the people that come there will actually hopefully be on site and frequent the businesses, and they're not really doing this.
Possibilities of, putting a good, privacy fence around it, like an 8-foot versus a 6-foot, where you still got Wilson peering over.
I mean, I can't answer that question right now. That's a significant property to try to fence around, and we typically would not do a full privacy fence, given the cost.
What about running it right next to where you put up the house on Robertson?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, with Robertson and the Ida side, not the front, not the highway.
To that point, though, if we're putting a privacy fence, we're not going all the way to the end of the property line because we have to maintain it. So all of a sudden, your property fence is sitting 9 people are there. So I don't really know if it's going to serve much purpose there. Now, I understand if there's something like that, that we have to maintain some type of privacy fence or buffer requirement. We will. I just don't know what that fence will look like. Yeah, I'm not trying to inconvenience you. I can't answer something that I like.
Otherwise, you're gonna wind up looking at a bunch of different fences. Wouldn't it be
Right.
better to have continuity and build your own fence? Sorry.
No, I understand where you're going with that one. What I can't answer is, what would that look like with the 8-foot privacy versus something else, and what's the cost to do that? I'm not in a position to answer that.
And there are other ways to
Whenever
shield
a
views
Shell
too.
station goes
Yeah.
in, there's an 8-foot fence as our providing, you know?
Shell occupies usually 3/4 of an acre, very different than what we're trying to cover here.
Yeah, it's a pretty large property for fencing, but there are other ways to kind of shield views too.
It's a significant cost that we will meet any city requirements to go above and beyond if it's not necessary and it doesn't enhance what our renters are doing. We're gonna do what we need to do, but we're not gonna just go build an extra 8-foot tall fence to have a prison wall either. It needs to be like a neighborhood.
You wouldn't have to.
So- So Mrs. Winterbauer, Miss Royce, I just wanted to see if you guys had any questions for Nick or for anyone either. I've just been kind of enjoying hearing what you guys have had to say. Not that I don't also, care about what happens to this property, but you guys are more proximal than me. a couple blocks away, so.
I think I just want to say thank you for this because it's a lot closer than I thought. Sorry about the ending of the fence, but.
No, I just can't answer the fence because I'm not in a position to know what the cost is. I don't want to say what that's going to be without
No,
getting proper
I
information.
had a fence quoted for my
Mhm.
4-unit, and yeah, it's significant.
Anyone, oh, yes.
When's the construction for the next phase of Robertson?
So the next phase of townhomes is scheduled to begin late January, February, early February. What I will start with there is, I have a court froze last 2 weeks. So if we're 2 weeks behind until we can get the ground moving, we can't do a heck of a lot. Yeah, so our goal is to have those road entrances open by spring. We want that open so we can get our construction traffic off the streets. We want it open so we can park our workers itself. Our goal is to get that finished. The roads is finished as fast as we can.
And you got 2 entrances going in on Robertson?
Correct.
Anyone have any final questions, thoughts, criticisms, poems? I don't know. Obviously, you can keep emailing me or Mr. Girton, Mrs. Winterbauer, Ms. Royce, or of course, talk to the PLK folks themselves. They have their contact info that they can share, right? Or I don't know how the best way to filter questions, but if it's a city-based question where you're asking about sewage, water, easements and stuff, you can direct it to me. I can try to get you the information you need. If it's stuff about their design, obviously Nick is probably your best bet. But I hope that was helpful in some way, even if you're perhaps not completely satisfied. And I never am. I know that most people aren't.
I only saw the notification on Monday. Evidently you were around on Friday. So
Yes.
It was laid somewhere I didn't see. So
So,
I have like a mailing email list of all the people that have been here before.
okay.
And I didn't get out to them until Monday.
I apologize. I had
So-
sent a notice on Friday morning to be sent out, and it didn't get sent out.
So it'd be nice if I can get, I can email
Yeah.
those people again and say that if you have any questions,
Yes.
direct them to you. Perhaps maybe you can have another one of these later down the line
Yeah,
as things progress.
yes,
And
and
there's the big large crane that was entered, that's now on multicolor site, so. I saw today, it's like, okay, they're moving on.
yeah, I tried, myself and a friend went out, we tried to get flyers to every house in the area. We probably didn't get every single house, but we tried to get at the majority of them. And I did try to send out the official email notice on Friday. Apparently it did not go out till Monday, but I sent it at 9 a.m. on Friday morning, so that is frustrating to me because I know having more notice is better than less. So in the future, we can have another one of these once things are a little more set in stone, and I'll try to make sure it's at least 3 or 4 days of notice, especially if it's going to be on a Wednesday. I'll just try to make sure I send it out Wednesday, Thursday, so that the person who does those mailings has enough time to get it done.
Or even if you put it on the calendar.
Yes.
We have on, because I look at that.
Oh, good. Yes, I can.
Calendar is pretty reliable because I don't see notices on Freeboard or Hardboard.
Really?
Anymore.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, that's something that I will double check with the calendar next time. I had sent it out again early, and I made an assumption, and that the assumption was wrong, so that's on me.
Thanks for putting it together.
But I do thank you for coming, even with slightly shorter notice than I wanted there to be. And thank you to Nick and Mick for coming as well. Again, just keep emails coming. You can call the city and our secretary will let us know. It may take a day for me to call you back, but I try to call back if it's to me within about 24 hours, depending on when I see the email. Email's probably easier because we don't have, the call basically just goes to the secretary here, and so she has to email us, and then we get a voicemail read out to our emails, and they can take a second, so.
My hope is just to have the questions come to you, you can compile them.
Yes.
And then that would make our meeting a little bit more efficient.
Yep, questions are great. I can compile them. I know that Mr. Girton had some as well, and Ms. Bowling had compiled some in previous meetings on other stuff. So we try to make sure, however we get the questions, that they get answered, even if the person who asked them can't come. Because apparently people have lives. They don't want to come to meetings all the time. I don't understand that. I love meetings.
Is this online?
Huh? Yes.
So there's-
Yes.
it's just a-
Yeah, you can watch it.
Yes, so this meeting is on YouTube through Norwood Community Television, as are all of our committee meetings and council meetings. Steve back there is recording stuff. He's in the little room back there. And so they are available, I think, the next day. I don't know.
No, we'll be up within the hour.
Oh, they stream live. Yeah, they stream live. I don't know, like, if they are reposted on YouTube or if it's automatic. So regardless, it'll be online real quick. And I did have a question about the presentation you did. I don't know if it was streamed with our meeting. I forget exactly how those screens work. Would you be able to send me that? That would be great. And if you want to see the presentation that he gave, not the live traffic count, but the other stuff with the details, I can send it to you, or you can get it from them, I guess, right now. But regardless, I would love to have it anyway, just so I have
If you
it.
want email, it's Mick for the noun at PLK. Email me, unfortunately, I get a couple hundred a day, and I try to answer them as fast as I can. It just takes a while. So if Mick can answer anything, he's at our office, and he's at the site every day, and can get these done quickly.
Yeah, the struggle is real. I have 3 different emails I have to keep up on.
That
My-
elevation map was very helpful.
Good. I'll make sure you email it to us with our site, and we just got it, so.
Yeah. And again, thank you all for coming. We're going to end the meeting officially, but obviously we can still chat afterward more unofficially. So have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you for those watching online.